The auction of shame. The sun of Vecra 9 burned red above the open slave market. Metal cages lined the dusty road, filled with frightened beings from many worlds. Shouts, laughter, and the sound of credits clinking filled the air. Alien traders waved their arms trying to sell their stock. But in one small corner, 2 cages stood nearly forgotten. Inside one cage sat a trembling girl, her blue skin dull and dirty. Her long silver hair was tangled, and she held her knees tight to her chest. Her big golden eyes stared at nothing, filled with fear. In the other cage sat another girl, completely different. She had dark red skin, glowing orange eyes, and sharp claws. She did not sit quietly. She hissed at anyone who came close, showing her fangs. Her long black hair was wild and her body was covered in scars. "No one's gonna buy those 2. One trader laughed, spitting on the ground. "That one's too soft, she'll cry all day. And that one's too wild, she'll bite your hand off." The crowd laughed and moved on. The auction continued. Aliens were dragged on stage. Some cried, some shouted, some begged. Prices were shouted. Bids were made. Buyers came and went. But no one looked at the 2 girls again. The soft one began to cry, her thin fingers digging into the cage bars. The wild one growled low in her throat but said nothing. Her eyes burned with quiet anger. Hours passed. Then a shadow fell over their cages. Boots stepped into the dust. A tall human man stood before them. His clothes were worn and his jacket was patched. His face was tired, but his eyes were clear and strong. He said nothing for a moment. He simply looked. First, at the soft one. She looked away, scared. Then, at the wild one. She stared back, teeth bared. "Back off, fleshbag," she snarled. He didn't flinch. Instead, he knelt down beside the cages. His voice was calm. "You 2 alone?" The soft one blinked. No one had asked her a question in weeks. The wild one spat. "Why do you care?" The trader nearby laughed. "Hey, human, you want a real slave? Go look at the newer ones. These 2? Trash." The human turned. "How much?" The trader blinked. "You serious?" "How much?" the human asked again. The trader scratched his head. "Together? 10 credits. Just take them off my hands." The crowd paused. Some aliens turned to watch. A few laughed again. The human pulled something from his pocket, a small coin pouch. He shook it. It jingled softly. "This is all I've got." The trader snatched the pouch, checked inside, and grunted. "Fine. They're yours. No returns." A mechanical arm opened the cages. The soft one didn't move. She looked at the open gate with fear, unsure what to do. The wild one stepped out slowly, eyeing the man. "You touch me, I'll rip your throat out," she warned. The human only nodded. "Fair deal. Just don't bite me today," he offered, his hand, not to grab but to help. The soft one stared at it. Then with shaking hands she crawled forward and touched his fingers. He gently helped her up. The wild one walked behind, arms crossed. She didn't need help. But her eyes never left him. They walked away from the auction. Behind them the traders laughed. "Poor fool. He'll be dead by morning. Wait till the wild one eats him alive." But the human didn't turn back. He led the 2 girls to an old hover truck. He opened the back and helped them in. There was a blanket, some water, and 2 small energy bars. "This is all I have right now," he said. "I'm not rich, but you're free here, no cages, no chains." The soft one sat holding the blanket tightly. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were quiet tears. Not of fear, but something else. The wild one sat in the corner, silent, watching. "What's your name?" the human asked gently. The soft one whispered, "Sira." The wild one stayed quiet. He nodded. "All right, I'm Jack." He sat in the front and started the engine. As the truck floated into the distance, the sun began to set behind them. The market faded into the background. Inside the truck, two alien girls sat with a human stranger. One was soft, broken by cruelty. The other was wild, hardened by pain, but both were no longer alone. And neither of them knew that this man, this human, had just changed their lives forever. The old hover truck moved slowly through the dusty outer roads, its engine humming like a tired beast. Inside, silence filled the back cabin. The soft alien girl, Sira, sat wrapped in the blanket Jack had given her. She held it tightly, as if it were the only thing keeping her alive. Her eyes were red from crying, but her tears had stopped. For now. Across from her, the wild one sat stiffly, her back against the wall. Her arms were crossed, claws still half sharp, and her eyes locked on Jack's reflection in the rearview mirror. She hadn't said her name. She didn't need to. Her silence said enough. She didn't trust him. Jack didn't force any words, he just drove. His hand stayed steady on the wheel even though he could feel the wild one's eyes burning holes into his neck. He had seen worse. He had been worse. There was a time he would have sold men like himself for a coin. But those days were gone. After an hour, the truck stopped near a lonely hilltop. A small house stood crooked and patched with scrap metal, half hidden in dry grass. Smoke rose gently from a chimney, and a windmill creaked in the wind. Jack stepped out and opened the back. Sira didn't move. She looked scared again. The wild one stood first. "No tricks, human," she said, voice low. "If this is another trap, I'll make sure you bleed before I go." Jack nodded calmly. "Fair. Come look for yourself." The wild girl jumped down, sniffing the air like an animal. Her nose twitched. No scent of soldiers, no trackers, just old oil, rust, and something warm. Bread? Sira followed, slowly. Jack held the door open. Inside the house was small but clean. A tiny kitchen, one couch, two soft mats on the floor. No weapons, no locks, no collars. "I sleep there," Jack said, pointing to the couch. "You can have the mats, they're not much but better than a cage." Sira looked around like she'd entered another world. The wild one just huffed and sat cross-legged on a mat. Jack handed them 2 bowls of stew. Simple, vegetables and old root meat. Sira sniffed it and began to eat fast, like she hadn't tasted warm food in weeks. The wild one watched Jack eat first. Only then did she take a bite. Later, as the stars appeared outside, Sira sat near the window. "Why did you buy us?" she asked softly. "You could have walked away." Jack leaned against the wall, sipping from a cracked mug. "Because I've seen what happens to girls no one wants." "But we're broken," she whispered. "No," he said, shaking his head. "You were hurt. There's a difference." Sira looked at him then, really looked. He wasn't young. His face was lined from too many suns and his eyes carried shadows. But his voice was gentle. And he hadn't once shouted. Not once raised a hand. The wild one finally spoke, surprising them both. "You used your last coin for us. Why?" Jack looked at her. "Because someone once used their last coin for me." The room grew quiet again. "I don't know what you two went through," Jack continued. "But I'm not here to fix you. I'm just here to give you a place where you can breathe, you can stay. Or you can leave when you're ready. But here, you're not slaves, you're people." The wild one stared at him. Her name still hung unsaid, locked deep inside. But for the first time, her shoulders relaxed, just a little. Sira said, "Can we really stay?" Jack nodded. "As long as you want." Sira smiled softly. It wasn't full, it wasn't strong, but it was real. That night, Jack laid on the couch staring at the old ceiling. He heard the girls whispering. Sira was asking the wild one something in a language Jack didn't understand. The wild one replied, sharp at first, then quieter, like thunder giving way to rain. And in that quiet, something shifted. Not trust. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. When morning came, Jack woke to the smell of something cooking. He blinked. Sira stood by the stove, copying what she had seen the night before. Her hands fumbled, but her face was full of focus. The wild. One sat near the window now, not guarding, but watching the windmill spin. Jack smiled. "Smells like something's burning." Sierra jumped. "Sorry." "It's fine," he said. "Let it burn. That's how we learn." She giggled softly. The wild one didn't laugh, but her lip twitched just a little. Jack stretched and looked out at the dusty sky. 2 alien girls sat in his home now. One was too soft, one too wild. But maybe, just maybe, they were exactly what he needed too. He had given them his last coin. But in return, he was given a promise that this broken family might heal together. That night, the wind outside howled through the broken fields, brushing against the old metal walls of Jack's home. Inside, the air was warmer, filled with the scent of burnt bread, soft stew, and quiet breaths. The 2 alien girls had eaten, sat, and now rested, each in her own way. But sleep did not come easily. Sierra curled up tightly on her mat. The blanket covered most of her tiny form, but her eyes were wide open. She stared at the ceiling, her mind refusing to rest. Every creak of wood made her flinch. Every gust of wind sounded like the chains of the slave ship. Her hands gripped the blanket so hard her knuckles turned pale. Across the room, the wild one sat upright, her back straight, her knees pulled close to her chest. She hadn't removed her boots or her claws. Her hair fell around her shoulders in messy waves, and her glowing orange eyes watched the door like a guard on duty. Jack lay on the couch, his arms behind his head. He wasn't truly asleep either. He knew this first night mattered. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just let the silence breathe around them. Then, crack. A branch outside hit the window. Sierra gasped. Her whole body shook. The wild one stood immediately, eyes narrowed, claws ready. Jack sat up. "Just the wind," he said softly, but Sierra's breathing had changed. Fast, tight, her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to go back," she whispered. "No one's taking you," Jack said, standing now but keeping his distance. Sierra's body trembled harder. "They locked me in a box. No food. They said I was too weak to sell, that they'd throw me into the junk pit. I could hear the screams of others in the dark." Her voice broke, and then tears came. Big, heavy, choking sobs that spilled down her cheeks as she tried to hide them. The wild one turned her head away as if uncomfortable with the sound. But Jack didn't move closer. He just sat down on the floor near her, without touching, without crowding. "You're safe now," he said gently. "No boxes, no chains, just the floor, the mat, and that blanket." Sierra cried harder. It wasn't a loud cry. It was the cry of someone who had held it in for too long. The cry of someone who was used to hiding pain so well that even they had forgotten how deep it went. The wild one finally spoke. "Crying won't fix it." Sierra didn't respond. "She's not weak," Jack said, looking at the wild girl. "You're not either, but you both were alone for too long. That kind of pain, it needs somewhere to go." "I didn't cry when they burned my village," the wild one said coldly. "Didn't cry when they sold my brother for spare parts." Jack looked at her. "And does it feel better, keeping it locked inside?" She turned away. Silence again, except for Sierra's quiet sobbing. After some time, her tears slowed. Her breath evened. She fell asleep just like that, curled up on the mat, blanket half fallen off, hand still gripping the edge. Jack stood and gently fixed the blanket without waking her. He turned off the small lamp beside the couch and lay back down. Then from the corner came a voice. "My name is Kale." Jack blinked in the dark. "What?" The wild one didn't repeat it, but she didn't have to. He smiled faintly. "Good. To meet you, Kale." No answer came. But in the silence that followed, something shifted. Not fully, not all the way. But something cracked, just a little, in her hard shell. Morning came slow and golden. Sunlight peeked through the dusty glass window. Sierra still slept, curled up like a child. Kyle sat by the window again, but now her eyes were softer. Tired, but not burning. Jack woke, stretched, and went to prepare something in the kitchen. The pan sizzled. Sierra stirred, yawning quietly. Kale watched Jack's back as he worked. "You're strange, human," she muttered. He glanced over his shoulder. "Is that a compliment?" Kale shrugged. "You didn't hit her, didn't chain us, didn't even ask what we're good for." Jack poured hot water into 2 cups and handed one to Kale. "You're not tools, you don't owe me anything." She held the cup, unsure. "Then why keep us?" Jack sipped his own. "Because maybe I need saving too." Kale blinked. For the first time in a long while, she didn't have a reply. Sierra smiled sleepily at them both. "Can we stay a little longer?" Jack nodded. "You can stay as long as you want." That morning, something unspoken passed between them all. Small thread, fragile, invisible, but real. It wasn't trust yet. It wasn't love, but it was a beginning. 3 days passed like whispers in the wind. Life in Jack's little metal house found a rhythm. Sierra smiled more often now, especially when she cooked or helped fix small things. Her hands were clumsy, but her heart was gentle. Jack let her work at her own pace. He never raised his voice, never told her to hurry. She often said softly, "Thank you," and meant every word. Kale, the wild one, didn't speak much. She still sat alone, still watched the window like a hawk, and still sharpened her claws on scrap metal. She refused to eat more than she needed, and didn't sleep at night. At least not that Jack ever saw, but even she had begun to change. Slowly. Once, she helped Sierra lift a bucket of water. Another time, she handed Jack a broken tool without being asked. She never smiled, but her silence was no longer sharp, just quiet. Then, on the 4th day, something changed. Kyle didn't get up that morning. She didn't sit by the window. She didn't check the door. She didn't even growl. Sierra was the first to notice. "She's not moving," she said, kneeling beside Kale's mat. "She feels hot." Jack came quickly. Kale lay there, eyes half closed, her skin burning with fever. Her breaths were shallow and sweat ran down her forehead. "Sick?" Sierra asked, panic in her voice. Jack touched Kale's forehead. "Yeah, she's burning up." He stood fast and pulled on his jacket. "I'll get help." "There's no one here," Sierra said, eyes wide. "The towns are too far. I know a man who trades medicine, but it's a long ride." Sierra clutched his arm. "You're leaving us?" Jack looked into her eyes. "Just for a few hours. Keep her cool. Use the wet cloth. Don't open the door unless it's me." Sierra nodded, though her hands shook. Jack ran outside, started the hover truck, and vanished into the red dust. Inside, the house felt colder without him. Sierra worked hard. She dipped old cloth in water and placed it on Kale's forehead. The wild girl muttered in her sleep, tossing and turning, her skin bright with heat. "Don't die," Sierra whispered, wiping her arm. "You're the strong one. I'm the weak one." "You're not allowed to die," Kyle groaned. "Don't touch." Sierra didn't stop. "Too bad. You helped me. Now it's my turn." Hours passed. The sun rose and began to fall again. Jack still hadn't returned. Sierra paced the room, eyes darting to the door every minute. Then just before sunset, she heard the engine. Jack's truck rolled up in a cloud of dust. He jumped out, holding a small box. His face was tired, and a fresh cut ran down his cheek. "What happened?" Sierra cried as she opened the door. "Ran into trouble," he said, stepping inside. "Old raider group still camping near the hills. They didn't like me passing through." He ignored his wound and rushed to Kale. He opened the medicine box, found the vial, and injected it into her neck carefully. "She'll be okay," he said. "This should bring the fever down by morning." Sierra sighed in relief. but Jack's face was pale. He leaned back against the wall and slid down, breathing hard. "You're hurt," she whispered. "I'll live." Later that night, Sierra bandaged Jack's face as he lay on the couch. Her small hands worked gently. "You didn't have to go," she said softly. "You risked your life." Jack looked at her. "I said you're not slaves. That means I care what happens to you. Both of you." Sierra blinked hard, her throat tight. On the mat, Kyle stirred. She opened her eyes, blinking slowly. Her vision cleared. She saw the blanket tucked over her, the wet cloth on her forehead, the food beside her, and Sierra, watching over her with worry. She growled, voice rough. "You stayed?" Sierra nodded, smiling through tears. "Of course." Kyle looked over to Jack, who was half asleep now. "You came back," she whispered to him. He opened one eye and smiled faintly. "You sound disappointed." Kale closed her eyes again. "No, just surprised." The next morning, Kale sat up weakly. Jack made her drink water. Sierra helped her eat. No one mentioned the tears Kale had hidden that night in her fever. But they were real. For the first time in a long time, Kale felt something different. Not fear, not rage, just warmth. Not from the blanket, not from the soup, but from them. The soft one, the strange human. They didn't leave, and that meant something. It was late afternoon when the stranger arrived. The windmill creaked gently under a soft breeze, and golden dust danced across the dry field. Jack was outside repairing the truck's engine, his hands covered in black grease. Inside, Sierra hummed quietly while peeling a strange purple fruit. Kyle, still weak from her fever, sat on a stool by the window, watching the world with tired eyes. Then she froze. A shadow moved beyond the grass line. Kyle's eyes narrowed. Her breathing stopped. She stood slowly, every muscle in her body alert. "Jack," she said, her voice low. "Someone's coming." Jack didn't hear her at first. He was busy checking a leaking pipe under the hood, but then the door creaked open behind him. A deep, gravelly voice spoke. "Well, well. Never thought I'd find you here, little beast." Jack turned quickly, wiping his hands on his pants. A tall figure stood just outside the fence. His armor was dented and rusted, but the blaster on his hip looked clean and ready. His skin was pale gray, and a scar ran across his lip. His yellow eyes locked on Kale like a hunter who had finally tracked his prey. Kale stepped outside slowly, her claws twitching. "Derek!" she spat, her voice full of venom. Sierra peeked from behind the door, confused and scared. "Who is he?" "My past," Kyle answered coldly. "And the reason I stopped trusting anyone." Derek laughed. "You look different, softer. Never thought you'd play house with a human." Jack stepped forward. "You know her?" Derek smirked. "She was one of mine. I trained her, raised her to be a fighter. Then she turned soft, got her team killed. She ran away instead of dying like a warrior." Kale's fists clenched. "You lied to us. You left us to die." "I left the weak to die," he said. "But now I've come to collect what's mine." "You sold her," Jack said. "She's not yours. She's free now." Derek tilted his head. "You think your little shack and kind words mean anything? She's property, human. So is the blue one hiding behind your door. The market laws say so." Jack didn't flinch. "They don't belong to anyone, especially not you." Derek's hand dropped to his blaster. "Then maybe I take them, after I kill you." Before the weapon left his holster, Kale moved. She struck like lightning. Even weakened, her training showed. She tackled Derek hard, sending him into the dirt. His blaster skidded across the ground, but Derek was fast too. He twisted, kicking her off, and rolled to his feet. Kale coughed, pain flashing across her face. She wasn't fully healed. Jack ran forward, grabbed the blaster, and pointed it at Derek. "Back off." Derek smiled through bleeding teeth. "You won't shoot. You're too soft." Just like her. Sierra stepped out then, holding a metal pipe. Her hands were shaking, but she stood beside Jack. She's not soft, Sierra said. She's brave. Kyle stood slowly, glaring at Derek. Leave, or I finish what I should have done long ago. Derek looked between all of them, Jack with the weapon, Sierra with the pipe, and Kale with blood in her eyes. He backed away, spitting on the ground. You're making a mistake, Kale. The galaxy won't be kind to freaks like you. Kale didn't answer. She just stood tall, chin up, eyes burning. Derek turned and walked away into the field. The dust swallowed his figure until only silence remained. Jack lowered the blaster. His hands were steady. Kale leaned against the post, breathing hard. Sierra rushed to her. You okay? Kale nodded slowly. I'm fine. Jack placed the blaster down on the porch. Was he telling the truth? Kale didn't answer right away. Her voice was low. He trained me when I was young, but he also beat us when we failed. He sent my squad to die for credits, and when I questioned him, he sold me. Sierra placed her hand gently on Kale's arm. He's gone now. Kyle looked at her. Not forever. Jack stepped closer. If he comes back, we'll be ready. You're not alone anymore. For a moment, Kale looked like she might break. Her lips parted, her jaw clenched. Then she looked away and sat down. I was ready to kill him, she whispered. And I would have helped, Jack said, sitting beside her. But maybe scaring him off was stronger. Sierra nodded. He thought we were weak, but he was wrong. Kyle didn't smile, but her eyes softened, just a little. That night, no one slept well. But the house felt different, like something heavy had been pushed away. And Kyle, for the first time since arriving, slept without guarding the door. The days after Derek's visit moved more gently, as if the wind itself had learned to whisper instead of howl. The tension in the house no longer wrapped around them like a chain. It loosened, piece by piece, as Kale began to heal, not just her body but something deeper. Jack noticed it first. Kale no longer sat with her back to the wall. She still watched the door, still listened closely to every sound outside, but she no longer reached for her claws every time someone passed. She ate with the others now, not after them. She cleaned her own dishes. She even fixed the loose plank near the water bucket without saying a word. Sierra noticed it too. Kale started answering questions. Not much, just nods and short words. Yes. No. There. But for Kale, those were huge. She even helped Sierra with a broken drawer in the kitchen and didn't hiss once. That day, Sierra whispered to Jack, "She's trying." Jack simply smiled. She doesn't have to rush. But it wasn't just kindness that shifted Kale. It was something smaller, more surprising. It began with a laugh. It happened when Jack dropped a heavy pot while trying to cook something that looked more like engine grease than food. The splash hit his shirt and he jumped back with a startled grunt. Sierra giggled. Jack wiped his shirt with a sigh and said, "That's the last time I try alien soup from memory." And then it happened. A short sound from Kale's throat. Not a growl, not a warning, but a laugh, quick and awkward, like she didn't quite know how to let it out. Sierra froze. Jack blinked. Kale realized what she had done and looked down quickly. Forget it. But Jack smiled. Too late. We heard it. Sierra clapped happily. You laughed. Don't make it weird, Kale muttered, but the edge in her voice had softened. That evening, they sat outside on the porch. Jack cleaned some old tools, Sierra played with pebbles near the fence, and Kale sat quietly, watching the stars appear one by one in the purple sky. After a while, Kale spoke. Her voice was low but steady. I used to love the stars. Before everything. Jack looked up. What changed? They took away the sky, she replied. Locked us in dark ships. Made us forget what light looked like. Sierra scooted closer. But you remember it now. Kyle nodded slowly. Because of this place. Jack didn't speak, but the warmth in his expression said everything. Silence passed comfortably between them. Then Cale surprised them again. "I never thanked you." Jack turned his head. "For what?" "For staying," she said. "When I was sick, when I was cruel, when I didn't trust you." Sierra smiled brightly. "You don't need to thank us. You're family now." Kyle looked at her for a long moment. "Family," she repeated quietly. "I haven't had one in a long time." Then her voice cracked slightly. "My little brother, he was 10 cycles younger than me. He liked to sing, loud and off-key. I used to tell him to shut up, but I never meant it. He was taken during a raid. I don't even know if he's alive." Sierra moved close and hugged her. Cale didn't push her away. She didn't hug back either, but her eyes closed, and for once no fire burned behind them. Jack spoke gently. "If he's alive, we'll find him." Kyle looked at him. "Why would you help?" Jack shrugged. "Because I don't leave people behind anymore." She didn't answer, but something shifted again. That night, Sierra fell asleep first. Jack read a small data tablet under a dim light. Cale stood by the window, arms crossed, but this time she wasn't guarding. She was remembering and feeling. She finally whispered, "I didn't think it was possible to feel safe again." Jack didn't look up. Safety starts small. Sometimes it starts with a meal, or a laugh, or a place to sleep where no one hurts you. Kyle nodded slowly. "Then maybe this is it." He smiled. "I hope so." And then she did something neither Sierra nor Jack expected. She walked over, sat beside him, and handed him the small blade she always kept in her boot. "Keep it," she said. "I don't think I need it anymore. Not in this house." Jack took it gently. "That's a big step." "I know," she whispered. And in that moment, Kyle, the wild one, the fighter, the snarling, scarred girl who once threatened to rip his throat out, became something else entirely. She became someone who believed in healing, someone who believed in them. Weeks passed like falling leaves, quiet and steady. The small house on the hill no longer felt empty. Laughter echoed in the walls now. There were burnt meals, messy repairs, and quiet stargazing on cool nights. Sierra planted strange alien seeds by the porch. Cale helped build a fence using scrap metal and her strong hands. Jack, once a man with only silence for company, now smiled more than he used to. But peace never stays hidden forever. One morning, while Cale and Sierra were sorting old tools outside, a silver shuttle landed at the edge of the field. It didn't make much noise, but the dust it kicked up warned everyone. Jack stepped out of the house, blaster hidden behind his back. A tall alien woman in a dark uniform stepped down from the shuttle ramp. She wore a badge of the Galactic Peace Bureau. Behind her were 2 silent guards and a small recording drone that hovered above them. Cale narrowed her eyes. Great. The galaxy finally remembered we exist. The inspector walked forward, eyes cold but calm. "I am Officer Rayla. We received a report from a passing trade outpost about a human man living with 2 undocumented alien females. You match the profile." Jack kept his voice steady. "They're not property. They're people, and they're free." Rayla scanned the area. Her eyes locked on Sierra, then Cale. "You purchased them from the slave market in Sector Delta 4, correct?" Jack nodded. "I used the last of my credits. No one else wanted them." Rayla tapped a small device on her wrist. "According to market law, once purchased, slaves must be registered within 10 cycles. You did not." "They're not slaves," Jack said again. "They're my family." Cale stepped forward. "We were abandoned. He gave us shelter. He never touched us, never forced us. He saved our lives." Rayla raised an eyebrow. "You're not required to defend him." Kyle's voice sharpened. "I'm not defending him. I'm stating a fact." The drone beeped and zoomed in closer. Rayla walked slowly to the porch and looked at the handmade fence, the small alien plants growing near the door, The clean mats laid under the sun. "This doesn't look like a prison," she said. "Because it's not," Sierra said softly. Rayla turned. "And you?" Sierra stepped beside Cale. "I was going to be thrown into a junk pit. No one even looked at me, but he saw me." The officer folded her hands. "Under current law, any individual who frees 2 undocumented alien girls may be charged with smuggling, unless official adoption is filed." Jack blinked. "Adoption?" "Yes," she replied. "As protector, guardian, or partner. Your bond must be declared before witnesses." Jack hesitated, unsure. Sierra spoke up, her voice filled with emotion. "We're already a family, just not on paper." Kyle looked at Jack. "Then make it real." Rayla nodded to her guards. One pulled out a small tablet. "All 3 of you, place your hand here." They did. The tablet beeped. Data filled the screen. Faces, names, status. Rayla read the result. "Approved. They are no longer slaves, no longer undocumented. You are now registered as a legal family unit under Earth Affiliate." "Code 7, Sierra gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. She looked at Cale and whispered, "We're real now." Cale smirked. "Took them long enough." Rayla turned to Jack. "Be warned. Not everyone in the galaxy agrees with this kind of unity. But I've seen worse things than kindness. Take care of them." "I will," Jack said quietly. The inspector and her team returned to the shuttle and disappeared into the sky. Later that evening, they sat under the stars again. Jack poured drinks into old cups. Sierra held her new ID tag and kept smiling at it. Cale leaned back in her chair, arms behind her head. Jack looked at both of them. "So, what now?" Sierra grinned. "We fixed the roof. It leaks when it rains." Cale stretched. "Then maybe we build another room. One for plants and maybe a new fence, one that looks a little less crooked." Jack chuckled. "All right, you 2 are the bosses now." For the first time, Cale laughed freely. Sierra laughed with her, and high above them, the galaxy watched. Some would mock them, some would fear them, but many more would be inspired. A human who saw beauty where others saw brokenness. A soft girl who grew stronger without losing her heart. A wild fighter who finally believed she was more than her scars. They weren't perfect, but they were free. And together, finally, they were home.